Welcome back, everybody, to V-Fest. It's Conversations with Kush podcast today. I'm your host, Molly the Kush RN, sitting down with an incredible set of guests today, including this woman next to me right here, Ranelle Kirchner. She is the CEO of High-End Confectioners, and she's going to tell us about who she is, what she does, and what foods a person can eat to support their endocannabinoid system. So take it away.
Well, thanks for having me. It's so nice to connect and be here today. It's so lovely.
Yes, it's a beautiful day.
I am first and foremost an educator. I spent much of my life and career just learning about food and nutrition. So as a chef, dietitian, and diabetes educator, wanted to create a brand using whole ingredients. And so that's something that I think is so important because these whole foods do affect our endocannabinoid system. So really trying to rely on these to help leverage and support that system is super important so that it can work better.
Awesome. What are some of we'll dive right into it then. What are some of the foods that can support your endocannabinoid system without cannabis even getting involved? Like, what can we do to our bodies to be more healthy and really bring those endogenous endocannabinoids up to the forefront where they can do their important work?
Well, a really big one is managing inflammation.
Okay.
So by having more omega-3 rich foods, first and foremost, is going to be helpful. In America, we have a balance that isn't what is recommended. So our balance of omega-3s to 6s is much higher when it should be more equal as a 1-to-1 or a 1-to-4. Okay. So and that's omega-3s to omega-6s. And you're probably thinking, what foods are they?
Yeah.
So omega-3 foods are going to be really rich in walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, salmon, mackerel, sardines, so some of these really oily, fatty fishes.
Okay.
And then to get the omega-6s, this is more of your seed oils like grapeseed, canola, safflower, sunflower.
Yeah, so definitely things that are going to support your wellness overall. Like, I always steer people towards those oils versus like a canola oil or a vegetable oil, right? Like,
Exactly.
It just makes sense that we wouldn't be putting those crappy types of oils into our body.
Yeah, or at least a better balance,
Right.
just to make sure that we're eating more of those foods. And I know a lot of people come to me and ask me, well, how do I get that balance? Because our American diet just tends to be heavy on the omega-6s.
Right.
So instead of trying to do the math and figure out on a daily basis, how do I get this better ratio, just being more conscientious and choosing majority of the time omega-3 fatty acids to either cook with or eat, those are going to be the ones that I recommend.
So out at V-Fest, I know people out here are invested in like growing their own food and hopefully growing their own cannabis pretty soon. What are some of the things that they could actually grow in their garden that would be supportive of that?
Yes, good question. Cruciferous vegetables. Okay. So looking at cauliflower, awesome. Broccoli, Brussels sprouts.
Okay.
So these foods have a compound that help with the regulation in the endocannabinoid system. So they improve the integrity of the system by maintaining the receptor, the health of the receptor.
Okay. Are there like specific, you hear people talk about like, I'm on the Mediterranean diet or I'm on the, I don't know, whatever else kind of diets people do. I've never dieted in my life and, I'm big sexy, so hey. But like, what are some of the, if they're into that kind of a thing, what would be like the most supportive diet plans, I guess, that would be
and I think that's a good thing you bring up because it shouldn't necessarily be about a diet as much as it is a lifestyle. Right. So trying to do things that you can manage throughout, that you can do majority of the time. So that's what you want to focus on, those healthy behaviors. Mm-hmm. So choosing foods that are more whole foods based, less processed is always going to be better because those are disruptors of our endocannabinoid system, as is high refined sugars. So staying away from the refined sugars or having less of them majority of the time, trying to have more water as well, because water is so essential in the way that we digest and metabolize, utilize ingredients in our bodies. Most people are dehydrated, so we really need to work on increasing our hydration to help basically everything in our body work better.
Right. I've just been really trying to encourage people to look at the medicines that occur naturally in the world. including cannabis, like sunlight and water and, you know, a healthy community where people can come out and get tapped in, you know. So I think those are really important to keep in mind, that it's not just about like, you know, waking up and like meal prepping for the week. Like, yes, that's important to be intentional about what you're putting into your body, but like it's also intentional to just be, to just think about wellness overall and like the other things you're doing. If you're eating a healthy diet and you're like going to the office and you're like gossiping and like telling lies about people, like that's still unhealthy.
Exactly.
So let's try to like rein it all in, right? Like,
well, you bring up a good point. It's not just diet, but it's also that there are other things that we're doing, like stress. Like if we can lower our stress, that can also have an impact on our body, because there's a cascade of events that happen when we are stressed, like increasing our cortisol levels, and there's going to be an effect, a domino effect. So our insulin levels, they're going to spike anytime you see these spikes. That's an imbalance in our system. So we want to try to keep it as balanced as possible.
And then you overwork your endocannabinoid system. It has to get it all in check again, right?
Exactly.
Let's talk about cannabis as food. So like what are some of the ways that people can easily incorporate cannabis into their diet as food?
Yeah, well, there's lots of fast-acting tinctures that you can add directly to your food if you want to feel the effects right away. And some foods will actually amplify the effects. Or what they'll do is delay that bliss feeling that you might feel.
Like what?
Chocolate.
Okay.
So cacao, and it should be a high percentage of cacao. So 70% or higher is what you want to look for. But it particularly prevents that breakdown of that cannabinoid. So we're going to feel more blissful. We're going to have an improved mood, less anxiety. So that's a good food to pair it with.
Mangoes, right?
Mangoes, there we go. As well as think of like herbs or spices like turmeric. So turmeric paired with black pepper, those two work better together. As well as cloves and rosemary. So those are good ingredients to use.
The interesting thing about food is that it's so rich in terpenes, right? So terpenes are found everywhere, not just in cannabis. Terpenes are people's medicine. It's what makes cannabis smell the way it smells and how it tastes, and same with foods, right? And flavonoids, they're very crucial to people's health, right? So talk a little bit about flavonoids and terpenes if you're able.
Yeah, so with flavonoids in particular, there's a lot of compounds, and depending on which one you're talking about, they all work on the ECS or the endocannabinoid system differently. So things like green tea, onion, garlic, they're going to help with that system. And again, it all comes down to these molecules affecting how our ECS works. So when we talk about modulating or changing the functions, it's either going to upregulate, help it work faster, improve the integrity of the system, or it's going to help with that synapse, that connection that happens with the cell and the neuron.
One of the things that I think is very underutilized, and maybe the population here at VFest might appreciate, is juicing cannabis. I think that it's really essential because you get THCA, which is cannabis that hasn't been decarboxylated yet, right? So there's a host of health benefits from that aren't going to make you feel euphoric. Again, I think sometimes people are leery of cannabis because they don't want to feel high, at least from the medical side, like there's people out there that want to feel euphoria, and that's awesome. That's a great benefit of cannabis, it's one of the best benefits of cannabis. But for the people looking for that, not wanting to get high feeling, I think juicing cannabis or using cannabis in its raw form is really a good option. So would you endorse that?
Absolutely, I do agree with that, and also more CBD. So again, to get that proportion, to get the whole plant, getting in some of those minor cannabinoids as well, looking for full spectrum.
So you can also do things like using a tea and putting your cannabis into a tea. I don't think that's high enough in temperature to release the A part, the acid part off of the THCA to make it euphoric. So I think that's also another good option. But so I don't know, I always want to encourage people to be intentional about knowing where your food and your cannabis comes from.
That's important.
So it is important, and tell us why.
Because what you put in your body affects everything, even what you put on your skin, which is your largest organ, if you really think about it. So I think it's important that we be intentional, because there's going to be repercussions, whether they're good or bad, based on what we feed ourselves. So we have to support our bodies with the most nourishing foods and things that we can, because it will show up. And that can also affect how our genes are expressed, whether it's turning on a gene or turning off a gene. So, this is a newer part of science, nutrigenomics or nutrigenomics. It's how nutrition can affect our gene expression. And so these things can also play a role.
100%. I want you to tell my audience about how your product helps support their endocannabinoid system.
Absolutely. So I do chocolates. I do bean-to-bar chocolates that are chocolate made from scratch, and that's where we actually get the bean in and do the entire process. So it takes about a week to make a bar of chocolate.
Wow.
So very few ingredients. Everything is very intentional. But that cacao in there, as well as some of the added functional mushrooms that I do, is going to give you benefits of immune support to, again, help with your ECS. Also things like turmeric and ginger are added in my honey drops for more gut health, and some of those compounds that can also improve the ECS.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here first, guys. Ranelle, tell my audience lastly where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me at highendconfectionsmn.com. I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
And then I just want to encourage everyone to remember we have a scan code. For any of the guests that have been on the show today, you can scan that code. You can go directly to their socials, to their website, and get in contact and learn more about what they do. The guests that I have had on today, I have had on intentionally. I think they align with the spirit of this festival, eating healthy diets, being spiritually aware, moving your body, having fitness, knowing where your food comes from, knowing and being intentional about what you put into your body. So make sure to check out all of the guests. And again, Ranelle, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I look forward to a longer conversation at some point, and seeing you out in the community always. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody.